Welcome to the Behind the Win podcast. I'm Jake Martin. For over 50 years, the LSI team has been dedicated to the science of business development. We've seen the impact of our work and how it's evolved into economic development and now social impact work. This week, Sean meets with Sam Newey, LSI's SVP of Commercial Advancement. They're going to talk about Sam's background at Marketstar, leveraging LSI's expertise in a commercial space, business development and outsourcing strategies, and the benefits of outsourcing. Let's dive in.
Sam, thank you so much for carving out this time to talk with me for a few minutes this morning, and been looking forward to this for a long time. This has been a long time in the
Yes, sir.
in the making, and really excited to have this opportunity, not only to spend this time with you this morning, but also that you're now part of our team.
Thanks. Yeah, super excited to be here as well. So thank you.
So I've got a whole list of things that I'm excited to talk to you about this morning. But before we start, maybe you could just tell a little about your history, talk about yourself and a bit of your career. And then I've got a bunch of questions that I'm excited to walk through with you.
Well, yeah, I'm a local guy. Grew up here in northern Utah and started my career in sales 25-ish years ago at the behest of a relative. I shifted gears from what I was doing in kind of a medical field over to technology. Whether or not that was a good decision yet, I don't know, but it's worked out well for me. And I started with a software company back in Orem, way back in '97, utility software, and it just kind of led to bigger and better things. I was able to work with a test house out of Linden that was kind of a company that rolled out of Novell. So felt like I was tied very closely to some of the core roots of what is now, Silicon Slopes. And then wound up at a company here in northern Utah called Marketstar that I wound up spending about almost 18 years at, all told. I had a little bit of a 6-month break after I started there, but that panned out quick. And then I wound up back at Marketstar, where I led or engaged with and wound up leading part of our business development efforts. And Marketstar is a outsourced sales and marketing company that gave me the opportunity to work with the best and the brightest in the industry. These were organizations that were looking to scale their sales teams. And as a result, what I always loved about it was I was working with the Harvard MBAs and Yale MBAs and Stanford MBAs who were coming to me to help them solve their problems, and found some great learnings by doing that, working with the Googles and Facebooks and the Intels of the world, and some great learnings and some great friendships that came out of it. And it's helped me to continually try to refine myself as an individual, as a professional, as a salesperson. And then, I left Marketstar and spent a little time in the AI space as well, working in a company that was developing autonomous driving technology, which is just absolutely fascinating. And a little bit of time in the solar game as well, not out knocking door to door, but trying to help a local organization scale and diversify some of their sales channels. And that's, during the course of that process, that's when you and I got talking, and it's led me here. And I'm super excited to be here at LSI. I think there are great things afoot. There are great people and a great history, a really rich history here, which is super attractive to me. I think a company is only as good as our history and our longevity and our reputation. And those are some of the things that are most appealing to me about LSI. So that's a long introduction, but hopefully that makes sense.
That's great. I want to talk about your time at Marketstar, if that's okay, for a few minutes. We've had a long history with Marketstar, which is if you're not familiar with Marketstar, as you said, is a outsourced business development and sales firm that my longtime friend Alan Hall had started. Interestingly, about the time I had acquired LSI, he'd had this idea for Marketstar that he'd really built out of his garage literally out of his garage into this amazing company. And Alan and I had worked together in the community. We had served in a number of civic and organizations. We'd worked together in the chamber. We'd served together in some nonprofit organizations. He was on my board of directors for a nonprofit that we both had a lot of connections to and a long history with. And so as we built this relationship through these other organizations, what we found was that LSI and Marketstar really had a lot in common, although our focus had been government business. Marketstar's focus was both business to business and consumer approach. There was a lot of similarity in our processes and overall objectives in working with clients. And maybe it'd be helpful. You'd spent so much time there as one of the top executives of the organization. Maybe just if you could give a 2-minute overview of your assessment, especially when you joined the company, what Marketstar looked like then in the early 2000s.
Yeah. So it's a good point. I joined in about 2002, and I started on the HP team. Like I said, Marketstar was at that time really positioned themselves as an outsourced sales and marketing company. And so organizations that were trying to grow their sales and their channel business came to Marketstar, among others, but Marketstar was one of the leaders in the industry. So I started on our HP team and started managing a handful of two-tier distribution and system integrator type partners. And, I was a kid compared to what I am now, but managing a $10 million quota and, helping our partners drive $120 million on a quarterly basis. So it was kind of this immersion into this great company. And the beauty of Marketstar was that we viewed ourselves as an extension of the brand that we were representing. So a few years later, we landed a large opportunity with the company Cisco. And it forced a bit of a pivot onto Marketstar, going from only channel sales and indirect sales to all of a sudden also carrying direct quota as a direct sales company. And that, as it turns out, I didn't close that deal. I didn't even have anything to do with that deal. But that deal really changed the trajectory of my work at Marketstar, because based on that, then I was able to start closing business with more and more clients on a direct sales initiative as the SaaS market developed, and advertising and advertising sales, digital ads. I started to have the opportunity to engage with clients like Dropbox, like Pinterest, like AdRoll, and a number of other, and Google. Google took me around the world literally to engage in different opportunities for Google and others. And hopefully that's It was just great to be there to see the evolution. And I was really fortunate because the first day I started going from HP into our business development group, I knew Alan Hall because we grew up in the same city. Well, he was a little bit more seasoned than I was, but I knew his kids. And Aaron Hall, when I joined Marketstar, was the chief operating officer at the time, and I was fortunate enough that I was riding the elevator and Alan was on the elevator. And it was my first day, literally as green as could be in business development. And he said, everyone can use our service. And I didn't realize how profound that statement was. But the beauty of Alan and the beauty of a lot of the key folks at Marketstar remind me a lot of you as well, Sean, because they had the mentality that if a client came to us with a need, very rarely was the answer no. The answer was often yes, and it was often, well, maybe not, but we'll figure it out. And so that scrappy mentality and an organization that really works to solve customer problems is really what I came to love. And what I feel like has been the hallmark of the last 15 years of my career is working with clients, not just selling a product on speeds and feeds, but really taking a client challenge or a problem or a business case that they're trying to develop and putting the system and process and tools in place that help them achieve those things.
Well, and I think what's been really fun is that you have seen the similarities of what Marketstar's achieved and what we've done over the last 50 years, very similar in the government market. One of the things that I think was so interesting is that as Alan and I developed this relationship, first through these civic organizations and nonprofit boards that we were passionate about, and we came to understand what each company's strength was, that really developed and evolved independent. I mean, we started the company, or our company was founded in the early 70s. Alan started his company, like I said, about the same time that I'd acquired LSI. And then he really had this idea that we need to bring our companies together to provide a service where LSI, the legacy LSI business was focused on government work, and the Marketstar business was focused on the commercial work. And you even mentioned some of the accounts that were large Marketstar accounts. They were also large LSI accounts, like HP and EDS and Cisco and some of, a lot of the tech Silicon Valley business that was emerging at that time. Both Marketstar and LSI had relationships with these Silicon Valley companies that we were working independent of each other. And there was this idea that I really think Alan had this vision that he wanted to have an exit strategy at some point. I mean, Alan is quite a bit older than I am. He had other things that he wanted to do, and obviously eventually sold Marketstar to Omnicom. But when we were talking seriously about bringing the companies together, and we had just gone through a series of acquisitions where we had acquired AST and Eagle and Howe Associates and K&A, a lot of the companies that longtime LSI clients and employees would recognize, Shipley as well. I mean, we saw that Marketstar was a target of opportunity. And then what happened about 2002 was there was this trajectory of sales that took off at Marketstar. All of a sudden, Alan was telling me, "Oh my goodness, I've got this this sales team or internal sales team that is just has taken the company in a new direction." That I think really created a conduit and a path for Alan to sell Marketstar to Omnicom. And you lived through that. Maybe you could talk about that period of time at Marketstar, which I think was, as I watched it from the sidelines and through my relationship with Alan, was just absolutely fascinating. And I really, looking at this, give you the credit for taking Marketstar from this small boutique firm to all of a sudden you've got a company like Omnicom looking at this as a target.
Well, it was fascinating time. I absolutely would not take credit. I'm very reticent to do that in any case. To be fair and equitable in this, scenario, I came into that scenario very, very late. There were other people that are smarter than me, better than me, that were managing those processes and enabling that acquisition. And some of the people that taught me the most in terms of my sales style and my ability at Marketstar and how to operate, how to respond to people were developing those things, but being there for the rise up in terms of the sell through of and the amount of revenue that we were doing in terms of new customer acquisition was a lot of fun. And it was an opportunity to learn a lot from the acquisition and the business that Omnicom brought to the table. So it enabled a lot of things for us. It enabled global scale because all of a sudden we had existing assets in other countries and other parts of the world that we could leverage to expand our business in with clients as their needs necessitated. That came with its own set of challenges, but having that as a vehicle to scale and expand was super important to Marketstar, and it really paved the way for us to expand that business among clients and frankly have some credibility with some of those major clients that we needed to bring in that were maybe a little skeptical about this small firm out of Ogden, because we did have other people we were competing with or other competitors that we were competing with that were much, much larger in terms of their infrastructure and their capability. They were often tied to customer support and contact center, and Marketstar truly was quota-bearing sales. But that, looking back on it, that was one of the best things that it did for us, was gave us that ability to really scale our business and cut our teeth internationally in ways that we hadn't before. We had opportunities in other parts of the world, but they were just never able to be solidified and stick like they did once we had kind of the Omnicom blueprint that we could follow.
Absolutely. You know what, as I look back at that time, and as I said, Alan and I would occasionally get together and share best practices. I mean, now in retrospect, it's funny to look at this, but we had, up until that time, I'd always viewed Marketstar as our little brother and doing good things, but in the commercial space as we were doing in the government business. But, Marketstar at that time was a much smaller entity than LSI. Then we became Marketstar's little brother. I mean, it was funny to see how that flipped, where we had Marketstar as potential acquisition, when we were doing all of these major acquisitions in the early 2000s, and what I saw in terms of growth, particularly by your team, was just incredible. That enabled Marketstar to then, and Alan to divest the company into Omnicom, which was it just was remarkable. And I kind of, it happened quickly. I sat there in awe as we saw. Like I said, as I had always viewed Marketstar up until that time as our little brother, and then you helped take the company in this direction that was just exponential. And really, I admired what you and the team did during that period, especially taking a company like an HP, who was also our client. As you know, we were doing, a tenth of the revenue with HP that Marketstar was doing. And I kept looking at how the focus that HP had and the trust that HP had, which I know a lot of that was your strategy, your relationships with the account. And I was very envious at that time that, we had this solid engagement with HP, but it was nothing like what what you and your team put together with HP. And I really admired what the group was doing up there.
Yeah, we were fortunate to have those kind of relationships and build off of some initial successes. And it was interesting to be there and see our revenue and our client path kind of follow the industry, as well as, like I said, I started selling HP enterprise servers and storage. Well, as the cloud began to develop, the need for on-prem storage and on-prem computing started to wane and give way to the Amazon, AWS of the world and those types of things. But the things that did start to develop were things like we started working with Google on their Chrome, as Chromebooks and that kind of computing started to develop. And so that kind of success led us into other areas of companies like Google, like NetApp. And then as digital advertising and things like digital retargeting and those types of things started to really pick up steam, our successes, and it's similar to what I see here at LSI, is we get a lot of referral business, and it was the same way at Marketstar. So my client at a new client that kind of came into the frame with a company called Adroll said, "Hey, I know that this is happening at Google and that you guys are going to scale this team down. Why don't we take some of that team?" And so we did, and we're able to move them over, and that got us into the advertising game. And then from there, we moved and were able to get on with companies like Pinterest. So having that ability to take a win, transfer that knowledge, that best practices to clients, and grow them, again, coming to LSI, it just felt very organic and very natural, and that these are the things that I've been doing. These are the same opportunities that present themselves. And even though, the core focus of LSI has always been in government-facing entities, that's one of the things I hope to bring to the table as well, is can we play that role? And I don't mean necessarily extension of their sales team, but are there things that other companies need to solve for that LSI can do directly for commercial type customers as well? So those are some of the things that I hope we can see evolve during my time here as well.
And I could not be more excited about this. We have really dabbled in this over the years, especially at the recommendation of Alan Hall, and where he saw the kind of amazing work we were doing with companies in the government space. He's always said, why are you not taking some of those tools and applying it to commercial? And I want to bookmark this for just a second. And before we leave Marketstar, just mention a couple of things as well. Like I said, I really have admired your work there. Obviously, my long relationship, now 30 plus years with Alan Hall, from the time, almost from the inception of Marketstar, where the two of us had this long friendship and history, to see this come full circle. And we don't talk about this a lot, but the amount of just incredible people that came out of Marketstar, I think it's been interesting over the years seeing so many of our team that went to Marketstar, especially during that huge trajectory in exponential new revenue. We had a lot of people that legacy LSI people that ended up going to Marketstar, and then conversely, over the last few years, we've had a lot of amazing people from Marketstar come here, including some of my favorite people in the world, Jessica Dixon and Summer Gray, and now you, among others, that in the company that just have been a remarkable crucible of leadership in both companies that have been synergistic over the years. So, but yeah, let's. I just wanted to mention that some of the alumni that are now superstars of LSI came out of Marketstar, including you.
Well, and I appreciate that. There, like I said, I'm very reticent to say, hey, this is what I did. Look at what I did. I was always very careful, very cognizant of the fact that, like here at LSI, anytime we have a win, it is a village effort. From whether it be the tip of the spear of marketing or sales development type work, to managing the sales process, to engaging with operations and the execution team, and legal, finance, accounting, everyone that comes into play. And yeah, there were some remarkable people that I had the chance to work with and learn from at Marketstar. And I've seen a lot of people that I started with when I was really young go on to do really great things, and some people that continue to drive business at Marketstar. And I'm super thrilled to be working again with people like Jessica, like Summer, like Darcy, and that, are just comfortable, and people that, you can rely on, and just, they're great. They elevate everybody around them.
Well, and I know you worked very closely with Jess and Darcy, and to have this team somewhat reunited, I think that is fun. It's been fun to watch this, and I mean they're part of your fan club, obviously. They have been, Jessica for years has been saying this is going to happen. I mean, she really was prophetic in. When she came, saying that at some point Sam's going to be here, and it finally happened. So that's been, and it's been fun to see the chemistry of this team back together. You and Jess and Summer, and that's been exciting to watch as well. So one of the things that, like I said, that over the years, we've dabbled in this commercial space, but really it had never been a strong foothold of our business. I mean, we had a lot of great tools around proposal development, around good messaging, obviously building a strategy, whatnot. But now that you've been here for a while, maybe you can talk about how you see so many of the similarities of that commercial focused business to what we've done, and how there is a natural opportunity, especially working with a company. We've mentioned HP, where that HP had been a joint client over the years, could benefit from an overall one-stop outsource business development and sales as a service approach.
In an outsourced case, and one of my predecessors at Marketstar, a guy named Dave Forsberg, kind of coined the phrase "sales as a service." And Dave was one of my greatest teachers at Marketstar, over working directly for him over the course of about 10 years. But in every case of an outsourcing, really, no matter what it is, it's people are outsourcers exist because organizations either can't, won't, or don't want to do whatever it is the outsourcer is fulfilling. And the beauty of an LSI is it goes beyond, a lot of people, when they hear business process outsourcing, they think of contact center or customer support, really low skilled, low labor cost services. And those things exist, and there are several multi-billion-dollar companies out there that fill that need. And I spent some time with one of those and got a very interesting perspective during that time. But an LSI, a Marketstar, and a few of these kind of boutique type organizations fill a much more educated, much more pointed need, either on a very tactical or a strategic basis. And that, what I remember is taking phone call after phone call from smaller organizations that wanted to do that had a need that would require 2 people to do this or 3 people to do that for a short period of time. So having the opportunity with LSI to be more open to those opportunities, to examine a little bit more what customers are trying to solve for, and have the ability to provide, I'm getting a little bit gross, but having the ability to provide that vehicle for them to solve those challenges, be it, like I said, short-term tactical, long-term strategic and scalable. That's what's intriguing to me most about LSI, and what really creates the opportunity for us in the commercial space. What those things are, I think will continue to unfold. It may be very technical. It may be that somebody wants to leverage LSI for some sales engineering over a period of time, or that they want to leverage LSI for supply chain and logistics management, or consulting, or, like you mentioned, the core offering of business development. Organizations that are trying to scale, that need a group that knows how to identify, build, and manage an existing pipeline of business is invaluable. And it's something that LSI brings to the table in a quick, short, established time frame that would just take too long, too much money, and too much effort for other organizations to do it on their own.
That was perfect. And, I think over the years, I've always had, individuals ask me, who is your competition? And, I've always said there are a few firms that do what we do, but our primary competition is the companies wanting to bring this in-house and do it organically. And you're exactly right. I think that over the years, you and I've had some of these discussions that we've had clients that have said, we are really bad at business development. We're great at making a product. We're really great at taking a challenge or whatever it is and working that. But doing the business development is not our strength. In fact, we had one of the top government contractors and a top Fortune 10 company that said to us one time, our strength is not business development. We are looking for you to fill that gap that we could, it would be too difficult for us to build organically. And so over the years, those companies that have understood that have saved a lot of money and have been able to leverage, force multiply their sales strategy where they've contracted with LSI as an extension of their sales and business development teams that they couldn't have done otherwise. And I love that you share that vision and concept, which was very similar to some of the work that you were doing and your overall approach that you had at Marketstar as well.
Yeah, one of the things that as I continue to engage with clients here and get my own kind of wrap down and my own value proposition is the way I've been putting it to clients lately is, LSI will help you engage, expand, and execute on your business. And I've always loved, I've spent since 99, 98, I've been in the outsourcing game. And I've always loved just being that extension of our clients, whatever it is they're trying to solve for. So that's that, and I didn't mean to have it be 3 E's, but really that's what I'm envisioning for clients is being able to engage, expand, and execute on things that they haven't or can't or aren't today.
That's right. I think one of the things as well that has been a fantastic selling point for both LSI and Marketstar has been this idea that we are going to deliver results that are quantitative. I have seen so many organizations over the years, hundreds of organizations that never were able to quantify their objectives for growth. It just is astounding to me that it's something arbitrary. There was no science behind it if there was an objective. It was just, this made up number. And the things where we have worked so well with a number of clients that have been 30-year accounts for us as an extension of their team, where they really, there was no differentiation between the client and the LSI team working that closely together as an extension of their organization. But I think having the ability to quantify and set specific objectives and metrics that we're going to work against has been huge, and committing to achieving a number that has been such a. I really think the longevity of LSI and Marketstar both has been simply that we both organizations have over the years been able to say, this is where we're going to take the company. This is our target. It's a quantitative metric, and this is how we're going to achieve it through this strategy and plan.
Yeah.
And that is surprisingly rare in most organizations, even very mature organizations.
Yeah. Part of it, my experience has been that a lot of clients or customers, they have an idea, and it might be a little vague, but they have an idea about the outcome that they want, but they, like you said, they don't necessarily know how to measure it and what does it look like from A to Z in terms of all the milestones that exist between here and there. And since I left Marketstar, I've had the opportunity to be on the client side of things as well. And all the things that I thought were so easy to solve as the outsourcer, they're not that easy to solve as the outsource E, if you will.
Right, exactly.
But there are some things that can't be guaranteed when labor is your product. The outcome isn't always certain, but helping clients identify, this is how I measure success. They may want, I had clients all the time say, oh, I'll buy it if you can guarantee me X amount of revenue. And I was actually on the phone with an LSI client earlier or late last week, and they said something similar. Well, we're happy to do it as long as it works. And I said, well, here's what I've learned. We can guarantee the effort. We can guarantee the activity.
Yeah.
I cannot guarantee the outcome. I would love to, but we can guarantee the effort and the activity. You meet your end of the bargain, we meet our end of the bargain, and we assume that those things will lead us to the ultimate success that we're trying to get to.
Absolutely.
But helping them understand what success looks like is often what clients need help getting to.
Over the last 10 years or so, a big part of our business has become working directly with government entities. And I mean, surprisingly, this was never part of our strategy. It came a lot of, we received a lot of visibility from our work with the state of California, the state of Oklahoma, the state of Utah, Virginia, and we had champions inside each of those organizations that were kind and evangelized how well and the success that we had working with their organizations. It was always interesting to me to see the government side. I mean, you talk about being on the client side. Well, I mean, where we had traditionally been working with government contractors like IBM, Lockheed, Boeing, General Dynamics, Northrop, all of these government entities, going on the other side, especially the SLED, the state and local side, and seeing their challenges, which was fascinating to me. I mean, we talk about having lack of objectives and metrics and anything, a target that's quantifiable on the business side. The work that we've done for state and municipal entities over the last 10 to 15 years, so much of that has been driven by just taking the processes that we had developed with a company like a Lockheed or an IBM or an HP and applying them to the government side to achieve their objectives. And I mean, it resonated with me. I can remember sitting with Governor Mary Fallin in Oklahoma, where she had said to me, we've got this budget deficit where we've got to come up with, I mean, I think at that time it was almost $2 billion, and they had a revenue shortfall due to the collapse of the oil and gas industry, and And I'm sitting there listening to her talk about this and how she was stressed about meeting these numbers, and thinking, this is not unlike anything that it's not different from what we hear out of a Lockheed, out of a Boeing, out of these companies. That happens all the time. Hey, we didn't hit our numbers, or we thought this business was going to happen, or we lost this, and how are we going to make up that gap? And I see that with so many of our clients, government, and now these commercial clients that we're pursuing as well, that there is so much similarities, that the approach, the strategy may be a little different, but the overall objectives in achieving this outcome-based approach is the same, no matter who the client is.
It's interesting that you started this with the biggest competitor we face is typically the client themselves. Do we build it? Do we buy it? That kind of a scenario. One of the most difficult and stinging lessons I learned at Marketstar from one of my other mentors there, a guy named Keith Titus, was that we put a bad deal through essentially in the pipeline, my team, and Keith wasn't happy about it. And he said, he kind of read me the riot act a little bit, but the core of the message was you pick what you're bad at and you essentially leave that alone. There are companies that are outsourcers like LSI that try to be all things to all companies. As we examine our possibilities, what we can do in the commercial space, we want to stay close to the core of the business. We don't want to get too far out on the edges. At the same time, a client or a customer is trying to solve for these problems. How do I build a pipeline in the government space? How do I handle my social and economic initiatives and these the objectives that are laid out on us coming from a board of trustees or whomever it might be? It's best to let somebody who's been there handle it. Somebody who's good at it. Don't try to pick something that you're bad at.
Totally agree.
To engage in. Now that often comes with a one-time capital layout that people aren't necessarily accustomed to or comfortable with. But if you were to amortize the spend that you're going to make to try to haphazard your way to the same outcome that an organization like LSI can deliver in a much shorter, concise, repeatable, and scalable result, it's going to cost you more in the long run than to engage with an organization like LSI. Hopefully that tracks.
Absolutely, it does for sure. One last thing that I think will resonate with you that we've heard over the years, no matter who the client is, whether it's a large Fortune 500 company, if it's a government entity, if it's a, whatever, that this dilemma of, do we do this work organically or do we outsource it? I mean, that's always, there's always this discussion, but tangent to that also is usually the decision makers will say this outright, or at least are thinking it. I mean, I can't tell you how many clients have just outright said to me and our team over the years, if we hire you to do this and you're successful, why does the company need me? What are you going to put me out of a job? I mean, that's always this fear. And I think we've tried to assuage that over the years by no, it is, we are going to be your team. We're going to give you credit for all of this. You're going to look like a hero achieving the objectives to your leadership or your shareholders or whatever stakeholder is holding you accountable, but that we work for you and that this is going to be good for you, and trying to convince and give some comfort to those decision makers that, no, you're going to look like a hero having us work for you as an extension of your organization, and that it's an opportunity for you. And over the years, we have seen that. We have seen so many individuals who have been promoted and have achieved success on the backs of our success. And
it definitely goes back to, again, kind of educating the client on what to expect and how to manage it. As an example, we would always encourage our clients that, we would say, these are the things we're bringing to the table. These are the things we anticipate from you, client. But one of those key things that we came to know was a very pivotal element of success was that we had vested program manager on the client side. And we would encourage the economic and the executive stakeholders to even have part of that person's compensation tied to our success. And so that project manager was then very motivated to stay involved and to stay engaged and make it successful. I think one of the differences here when we're dealing with government versus commercial is I was dealing with a lot of young up-and-comers in software. And I remember one of my stakeholders was a woman fresh out of college and wielding a $10 million budget. And she was like nothing. And so, but we were able to win our business with her. We were able to gain a high degree of trust, and people like her and others were elevated and able to move on the backs of the things that we were doing. And we loved that. Exactly. Because oftentimes when they landed at other organizations, they would bring us in there as well. It happened to me. One of my clients was at Dropbox. He left and went, I can't remember where, but he went to another client, and we were one of his first calls and re-engaged there with them. And so just being able to educate them and to let them know that, hey, these are the things that we need. We're going, like you just said, we're going to make you the hero. We're going to help you be successful and use this as a jewel in your crown or a stepping stone in your career. Let's make this successful together. And I think that conversation helps them understand the ability that an LSI has to help them achieve those objectives.
Exactly. Well, Sam, like I said, I'm so excited that this finally happened, that you're finally part of our team after all this time, and really excited about your ideas and strategy around building out a commercial practice, as well as expanding the other existing legacy LSI business. It's just it is really. I mean, over the holidays, as you know, I was traveling a bit, and it really was what I was excited about for this upcoming year, is seeing this finally come together. And I'm really happy that you're part of our team, and sort of reunited some of the superstars of Marketstar under the LSI brand, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I'm very excited to be here, and I think it will. I think it will always come with challenges, but I think there are great things out there and great things for LSI, and I'm super excited to be a part of it.
What do you do when you're not working?
Well, my wife and I have a very large blended family, and that's really where all of my time goes. I part of that is I really love to cook. It's something that I'm not necessarily classically trained, but people seem to like it that eat my food, either that or they're just being nice. But that's probably where I spend the majority of my time. I try to exercise here and there in various ways, but really it's family and it's food is kind of what it boils down to for me.
What do you cook?
I like Italian the most, which if you're trying to stay healthy isn't always They don't always coincide very well. I lived in Jamaica for a period of time, and I like to do some of that kind of Caribbean Jamaican food, which in some cases is a little bit of an acquired taste, but Italian, maybe Japanese is my number two right now, but my Jamaican is my traditional fallback.
I just spent 2 weeks in Japan
Yeah.
and had some of the most amazing food I've ever had. You and I ought to talk about that. It is, I had no idea the complexity and just how different regions of Japan have exploited these various dishes. And so I'd love to tell you about my experience being in Japan for 2 weeks. And I had some of the most amazing food. Have you ever read?
Sounds amazing.
Oh, it was.
I'm sure a Japanese purist would scoff at my Japanese menu, but it's the spices and things is where I'm starting.
Have you read The 4-Hour Chef? Do you know that book?
I don't.
Get that book. It is you'll find that fascinating. I had read that some time ago, and it's not just. I mean, there's a lot of things about life in there, but. Tim Ferriss, he built this kind of a franchise around the 4-hour, 4-hour work week, 4-hour body, 4-hour chef. And I think initially when I read that, when I read the 4-hour work week, at that time I finished that book and I didn't understand that so much of this was a metaphor. He didn't really mean that you're only going to be working 4 hours, but he had translated this into some other this other franchise, and one is the 4-Hour Chef. It is fantastic, and I would recommend it to you or anybody that has an interest in cooking. And like I said, there's some other life hacks in there as well. But
I'll check it out.
Yeah, read that book. Sam, anything else before we wrap this up? I really appreciate you carving out the time to do this with me this morning, and we'll do some more of these. I had some other things that at some point I'd like to explore with you, but anything else before we wrap up?
No, right now. It's been my pleasure.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, and I'm excited about this year.
Yeah.
Take care.
All right. Chat soon.